Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to welcome you all to this Step Up Live. This is February's Step Up Live, where we're going to be discussing food apartheid in Savannah. Before I turn it over to our presenters this evening, Mr. Turner and Mr. Bowen, I just wanted to quickly introduce ourselves, the presenters of this Step Up Live, Step Up Savannah. So I'm just going to quickly introduce who we are and the work that we do. Go to the next slide if you want to, Kim. And so, of course, you can find us all over social media, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, in addition to, of course, our website where you can learn more about our programs, things like this that we offer, and some of our advocacy work. Just a little history on Step Up Savannah. We were established in 2008 as a poverty reduction initiative. We've grown into a standalone nonprofit agency that offers direct programming. But as you can see tonight, we also offer advocacy, convening, collaborating, and capacity building services as we try to address the very complicated issues around economic inclusion. We like to say that we're from the southeast region of Georgia in the Savannah-Chatham community, but that we serve pretty much anybody we can. Our mission is that Step Up Savannah promotes economic inclusion and financial security from Chatham County, Georgia. And our vision, we believe that Savannah is a community where all people have hope and opportunity, where we challenge injustice, and where all community members step up to create a more economically inclusive community. In addition to being guided by our mission and vision, we also have a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement that we'd like to share. Equity is a core value at Step Up Savannah. We are committed to diversity and inclusion by honoring experiences, perspectives, and unique identities. Together with our partners, Step Up strives to create and maintain working, service, learning, and collaborative environments that are inclusive, equitable, and welcoming. In addition to diversity, equity, and inclusion being core values, we also have integrity as a core value. You can see the quote there by Brene Brown. Choosing courage over comfort, choosing what is right over what is fun, fast, or easy, and choosing to practice our values rather than simply professing them. So that integrity crosses over into all of our work. That's why we wanted to highlight it. But of course, we also have economic inclusion as a core value, and that's economic mobility and self-sufficiency of all community members in creating opportunities for all. And we believe in equity and not just equality. Equality means each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunities, whereas equity recognizes that everybody has different circumstances, and what we need to do is allocate the exact resources and opportunities to reach an equal outcome. And finally, hope, the confident expectation of a favorable outcome, no matter where you live in the community. We also organize our work to create social impact, and we are guided by these 5 pillars. So we try to center those who have been systematically disenfranchised and marginalized, the least, the last, and the left out. We also try to act as a partner and collaborate for the purpose of advocacy and capacity building. We also lift up and advocate promising solutions that are system-oriented, and we incubate and evaluate both local and regional solutions and programs for effectiveness and expansion. And finally, we amplify and humanize the work and share that story. So some of the things that you're going to see this evening very, very directly tie into this work. We're so happy to be working with these partners. In addition, of course, to our advocacy work, we've got our Americorps Vista program. I saw some of the first participants tonight were some of our Americorps Vistas, so thank you for being here. We've also got our Chatham Apprentice program, which works to give people stackable credentials that they can use to earn higher wages and promote that economic mobility. There's our Level Up program, which adds on to what people learned in the Chatham Apprentice program. We've got our Neighborhood Leadership Academy, our Public Benefits program, which is critical to the work that we're going to be talking about today. and our Working Families Network, which is another way that we convene and collaborate with others. So I'm going to turn it over to my associate, Kim, who's going to introduce the agencies that are advocating among us.
Thank you so much, Austin. Yes, so tonight we have with us Healthy Savannah and Forsyth Farmers Market. And like we stated, we will be discussing the food apartheid information. So we are super excited about that. We have with us Armand Turner. And Armand is from Gary, Indiana. After graduating from Indiana University in 2014, Armand spent the next 2 years working at several parks and recreations departments across the states, including Denver, Colorado, and the surrounding cities of Dallas, Texas. In 2016, Armand took on the role of recreation and intramural sports coordinator at the historically Black College of Albany State University in Albany, Georgia. After 3 tremendous years working for the university, he settled in Savannah, Georgia in 2019 and began working with Healthy Savannah and the YMCA of Coastal Georgia for the REACH grant, which is Racial and Ethnic Approaches to Community Health. Here, Armand has played the role of working with African Americans within the county who are currently low wealth to improve their ability to live healthier, more active lives. Thank you for joining us, Armand. We also have with us Mark Bowen, and he's from Forsyth Farmers Market and is the Director of Programs. As the director, he manages and supports Forsyth Farm Truck 912 education and outreach for Forsyth Farmers Market. Mark's career in food justice and agriculture spans over 18 years, and his experience includes farming, initiating gardens in a variety of settings, food policy, food distribution, food literacy and education, consulting, and cooperative and workforce development. Mark is also a certified horticultural therapist and a master gardener. Mark is originally from Virginia in the Washington, D.C. area, but has lived in the South for over 10 years and is no stranger to Savannah. Both of his parents were raised in West Savannah. His direct family lineage is in Chatham County and dates back to the early 1700s. And he has spent time every year of his life in Savannah, which is where he now calls home. Thank you for joining us, Mark. I'm now going to turn it over to Mr. Armand Turner, and he's going to talk to us about food apartheid in the city of Savannah. Armand.
Thank you so much, Kim. I just want to say I'm honored to be on. I really do appreciate you all allowing me to join you all. So food apartheid in the city of Savannah. I hope to give you all just a really good overview of what food apartheid sort of means and where Savannah is currently in our sort of fight to address food insecurity. So where are we today as far as food insecurity and the city of Savannah? As of right now, about 35,000 Savannahans are living in areas without access to healthy foods. And about 60 to 80% are African Americans who are living in areas without access to healthy food. As we more than likely know, and the CDC sort of backs up, a lot of the health issues, especially chronic health diseases like heart disease and diabetes and obesity, tends to stem from living in areas in zip codes and census tracts in areas that don't have access to healthy food or reliable healthy food. So those higher rates of incidence, prevalence, and mortality are backed up by stats and science. And where Savannah is right now isn't great. There are some cities that are a little worse off, but we definitely have a long, long way to go. Next slide, please. So food insecurity, the official definition is lack of consistent access to enough food for every person in the household to live an active, healthy life. I want to give you all these really sort of official definitions, and that way we can sort of talk a little bit about a little more of the nuance of them as we go forward. Next slide, please. So from a broad view, where is America at with these same issues? About 38 million people are food insecure within the US, and 12 of that 38 million are actually children. So it's a big issue, and I guess the only silver lining about that is that we have a lot of different organizations, cities, and governments that are trying to combat this. And because of that, and through our research, we've been able to come up with some pretty good, I won't say solutions, but recommendations on what Savannah can do moving forward to pull our own weight in this effort to end this food insecurity issue that we have today. Next slide, please. So food deserts. I feel like food deserts is a pretty commonly known term at this point. It gets used a lot. Its official definition is low-income census tracts with a substantial number or share of residents with low levels of access to retail outlets selling healthy and affordable foods. So in the most basic sense, this is what people think about when they think about these neighborhoods that don't have grocery stores in them. And it's pretty wide known. Next slide, please. And so that's where we arrive at food apartheid. So the main thing about those previous two definitions, and from my view, is that neither sort of talked about the major elephant in the room, which is that the ones who are affected by these issues the most are communities of color, and specifically Black communities. So the whole point of the phrase of food apartheid is really to bring attention to this issue, that Black communities are affected the most. And that's where destructive food, predatory marketing, systematic racism, and discriminatory corporate control systems lead to those poor outcomes that I mentioned earlier. With all that said, I would like to hear from Mark, who has been boots on the ground working in this arena for some time now. Mark, what's your thoughts on sort of the differences, and how do you view what food apartheid is, especially when compared to some of those other terms?
Absolutely. Thank you, Armand, and welcome everybody. And same sentiments as Armand. Thank you, and I'm honored to be here today. So I just wanted to start by giving a little history about this term, food apartheid. It was coined by a woman named Karen Washington, who I affectionately know as Mama Karen. She defined food apartheid such as, I coined the term food apartheid to ask us to look at the root causes of inequity in our food system on the basis of race, class, and geography. Food apartheid underscores that this is the result of decades of discriminatory planning and policy decisions. It begs the question, what are the social inequities that you see, and what are you doing to address them? And as we go through this presentation, both Armand and I are going to get into the details of many of the things that she has in this definition that she coined. Next slide, please. So Armand gave three great definitions of each one of these words, each one of these terms, but I just wanted to kind of go over some of the nuance between them, because sometimes they're conflated and sometimes they're confused with one another, or sometimes we just, these terms may be new to us. I actually want to start with the top and bottom terms, food insecurity and food apartheid. Think of it this way. Food insecurity describes the condition that people are in. Food apartheid describes the system that is creating the conditions that people find themselves in. Food deserts, and you can hear Karen Washington, if you look her up, she talks in length about how the definition or the word food deserts is problematic, because some of the things that she points out is that it's an outsider term that's been placed on a community, which is what happens to poor communities or oppressed people most often, is that things are labeled upon them instead of having the power to define yourself. And so this term, food apartheid, she came up with and actually in resistance to food deserts. So the problems with food deserts, using that term, is that it implies like an area that does not, the word desert invokes the thoughts of like desolation and not much going on around there. But these are actually very vibrant and strong communities that exist in these so-called food deserts. The other problem with the term is that the definition that Armand read earlier, it doesn't address or talk about how the problem came to be. It just describes the problem, and it doesn't describe what actually took place in order to create the conditions, and that condition again being food insecurity in those communities. Thank you, and Armand, I'll bring it back to you.
Thank you, Mark. One of the best things, or the most impactful things that I think you just said, was talking about how a food apartheid is the system that creates the condition. And that leads me to what redlining is, because that is literally a system that's created the position that Savannah is in right now as far as food insecurity and food apartheid. So for those who have never heard of redlining, what it basically is basically government bodies and lenders who back in the day created these maps that really sort of determined what areas were suitable to receive loans, specifically housing loans. And so this is a map of the city of Savannah back in 1929. You probably can't see my mouse, but in that upper left corner and that upper right corner, which we know is East and West Savannah now, are two of the areas that were deemed as hazardous or declining by these people making these maps. And therefore, the people within those areas were not receiving the same home loans that people who were designated to be in the best areas were. And obviously, the main thing to know about this is the determining factor of what was desirable and what wasn't was the race of the individuals living in that area. And so obviously the African-American population were redlined into these hazardous areas, and we're still feeling the impact of that today. And I can show you how in just a moment. Next slide, please. So before I get into that, I wanted to talk about the Real Task Force Savannah. And what that was the task force put together by current Mayor Van Johnson and led by former Mayor Otis Johnson. And we were charged with sort of identifying the inequities that are occurring currently within the city of Savannah. And that's around health, environment, economics, and so forth, to identify what these inequities are, and then start working to find some evidence-based solutions to rectify them. And so the group in that picture met first, and then they expanded into those different sort of teams. And I was lucky enough to be asked to join the health team. And here's a lot of the sort of stuff that we uncovered while working together. So the two area codes that I mentioned earlier in that redlining map were the 31404 and the 31415 zip codes. And what we found was that those two zip codes are still suffering from a lot of the issues that cause poor health outcomes across America today. So those two areas that were redlined, even today, decades later, is still 55 to 87% African American zip codes, and it's where the majority, obviously, of Savannah lives, if you are Black. Next slide, please. What we also found is that our low wealth population was also concentrated in those same formerly redlined areas. The median income in those areas is 44.9 thousand or lower. And if you look at the map, the lighter the blue area is the lower the median income. Sorry about that. Next slide, please. And so, of course, food access. And this is stuff that Healthy Savannah had began looking into a few years back. And we were able to basically map out, based on census tracts and zip codes, areas that were that existed where a grocery store was more than a mile away. And that's how we sort of gauged food access. And what we found was afterwards, many years later, as we've sort of placed that redlining map on top of this, that once again, the areas most affected by lack of food access were those same two zip codes, 31404 and 31415, once again. Next slide, please. Now this says food access in Chatham County, but that's my mistake. It should say chronic disease in Chatham County. But as you can see, especially in this purple and pink map, the darker the purple, the higher the percentage of people living with chronic diseases such as obesity and heart disease and so forth. And once again, those same two zip codes are suffering the most. And those are our areas with our low wealth population, our African American population, and our food apartheid population. Next slide, please. So a lot of that research was put together by this large team. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge them because I was just a small part of a bigger movement within this team. I want to especially acknowledge Tiffany Patella, who was my co-convener, and just a long list of people doing great stuff throughout Savannah and Georgia who were able to not only put together that research beforehand, but also look at the evidence-based practices happening across the country and sort of come together and determine what would be best and most suitable for the population that we have here in Savannah. I think the thing to remember is that every city, neighborhood, community is different and have different needs and just have a different way of living. So what may work right in New York may not be the case here in Savannah. Same for Oakland, California. So many other places doing this type of work, but figuring out what's best for Savannah was a task within itself. And we were able to come up with some good solutions. Next slide, please. Before I get into my more specific ones, I do want to give Mark the chance to talk about how he sees food apartheid being addressed from his stance.
Thank you, Armand. And thank you for that very valuable information. I could definitely build on a lot of what you've presented there as we go through this presentation. So just to kind of bring things back to this word, food apartheid, because Armand did a very good job of actually showing us what food apartheid looks like in Savannah and the origins of how food apartheid exists in Savannah. So thank you very much for that, Armand. Later on, Armand's going to get into some of the nuances of or details of how it looks in Savannah. But for this chart right here, I want us to think about food apartheid on more of a meta level, if you will. If we're really, really serious about addressing food apartheid, It's a collection of things that must take place simultaneously. Addressing one without the other doesn't work. It alleviates some things, it helps some people, but in totality, the problems will consist. The problems will continue to happen. So I have 4 areas that I've identified that are areas if we really want to seriously address food apartheid, and that when I say we, that includes us here in Savannah, us on this talk, and us as a nation as well. But so starting with policy, the policy, Armand's going to get more into the policies that Savannah is working on. But when we think about like large scale policy shifts that need to change to address food apartheid, we're talking about major shifts in our healthcare system, Medicaid for all being a solution to that. We're talking about huge policy shifts in terms of the things that prevent healthy food from being in communities. We're talking about policy shifts that where the people who are most affected by the policies in place that are hurting them are now the people who are in a position to actually guide what policies actually empower their communities. And that is a segue into participatory democracy. Participatory democracy is basically what I just explained. It is, so, you know, let's go back to government class for a second. You know, we live in a representative democracy. We vote for people and then they come into power and then they make decisions, right? And, you know, depending on the size of your pocket or the mass of people that's behind you, we can influence what those people we put in office decide to legislate for or vote for. Participatory democracy is a little different. Participatory democracy is, yes, we still vote somebody in, but the community, you know, it's a slower process where the community gets to make the decisions that our voted official, the person that we elected into office, they will make their decisions based upon the decisions that are made in the community, based upon the votes and consensus that happens in community. So participatory democracy plays an important role in addressing food apartheid in that way. Education, and again, this is a top-down sort of thing. You know, grassroots, I mean, just starting with grassroots education with the kind of programs that Healthy Savannah, Step Up, Foresight Farmers Market, and other dope organizations around Savannah are doing, you know, starting at a grassroots level all the way up to, you know, a national level. I usually ask people to try and dream big. Like, what does it look like, you know, if the money in the government or the money to the wealthiest people in this nation, what if that money was somewhere else, going into education programs that actually fund people and fund programs at this with the same kind of breadth that like Defense Department gets funded with? How different would our communities look? How different would our education system look? So that's just a small bit on education. And that, of course, ties into wealth distribution. It doesn't mean just wealth distribution in terms of, you know, wealthy people, corporations, and individuals. It also talks to the wealth that within the national budget. And so again, the wealth within the national budget, meaning that we need to allocate, these are not the opinions of Foresight Farmers Market, just to do that disclaimer, but the wealth within our national budget, within the wealthiest corporations and people, that money needs to be redistributed in a way that people always come first before other interests. And so to wrap this part up, all 4 of these things need to be addressed simultaneously. And I know that seems like a big and daunting task, But, people before us took on big and daunting tasks, and we are sitting here being able to benefit from those things today. And again, just to begin wrapping it up, one can't be addressed without the other. So I'll give an example. Let's take policy and wealth redistribution. So in 2014, when the Farm Bill was put before Congress, and if you're not familiar with the Farm Bill is the largest funded single piece of legislation in the United States government. It covers it covers SNAP. 50% of it actually covers SNAP, WIC, TANF programs that Step Up offers, and other organizations like ourselves offer specifically SNAP. And in 2014, and then the other half of the bill, the other 50% goes to subsidies to companies, insurance for crops, for farmers, and things that you think about in farming or things you may not know about attached to farming. And so in 2014, when the Farm Bill was put up, it goes up every 5 years, and it's getting ready to come up again. I was asked to speak on a panel on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. to advocate for certain policies and programs for farmers, it's particularly small farmers, right? And, all kinds of legislators and legislative assistants came out to listen to the panel that I was on. And lo and behold, when the Farm Bill was passed, those programs and policies were passed with the Farm Bill. So it was a huge victory. But the people who were sponsoring me on that program, I was like, this is good, this is great. And they're like, yes, it is great. We've got the policy in place, but it doesn't guarantee that it'll be funded. So that's just an example of how one thing can take place. We got the policy, we got the program in place, but without that redistribution of where the wealth goes within our budget or where the wealth goes within everywhere else within the country, that policy is basically ineffective. So again, that's just me driving the point that all of these things need to happen at the same time. Thank you, Armand. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Well, some of the, you want to talk about that a little more, Mark?
Yeah, sorry about that. We can go back. Some of the ways that Forsyth Farmers Market addresses food apartheid. I would say that for Forsyth Farmers Market, I wouldn't say that we directly address food apartheid, especially at the levels that I was just discussing. More so of a clandestine mission, if you will, in our communities that we're involved in. But some of the programs that we're involved in, because we're more focused on food access as an organization and supporting farmers. But some of the ways that we address food apartheid or food insecurity more directly is our program Farm Truck 912, which is a mobile produce vehicle that goes to low access and low income communities throughout Savannah and provides healthy, provides vegetables and fruits and other foods created by local food artisans to communities who otherwise may not have access or do not have access to those foods. And going back to something that Armand was talking about, those two zip codes, 31404 and 31415, the east side and the west side is where you will find the farm truck throughout the majority of our schedule. We are, and that is intentional for us to be in those sort of communities. You don't find us on the south side as much, but that doesn't mean that there isn't poverty on the south side, and we're actually in the middle of new programming to actually be on the south side with the farm truck. Another program that we have is 912 Food Pharmacy. And once again, oh, well, let me explain the program first. 912 Food Pharmacy is a program where if you are in danger, of or have an existing health condition that is related to food illness, such as diabetes, hypertension, arteriosclerosis, things like that, you are eligible for this program. Or even if you receive SNAP, you are eligible for this program. So 912 Food Pharmacy, what it does is, for those that are eligible for the program, they receive free nutrition education. And along with that nutrition education, they receive vouchers based on the size of their household. And those vouchers can be used to purchase fresh fruits and vegetables, either at our Saturday market or at Farm Truck 912. And the majority of those places, because the farm truck, the program is set up with the farm truck, but the program itself too, on a weekly basis, actually starting next week, and it goes all the way through October. Each week it's in a different location, and those locations are also concentrated on the east and west sides of Savannah. There's a program, again, when I talk, going back to that other slide, thinking about education at the grassroots level, one of the programs that we have is a Taste of African Heritage cooking class. And it's a 6-week cooking class where you get to learn about a traditional heritage diet, which basically means a traditional African diet, but this is a vegan-based African diet. So it's a pretty amazing and actually beautiful thing to be a part of when you go to these classes, because not only do we have an amazing facilitator that really knows her stuff, our education outreach coordinator, Tasha Way, but the program, you get to really see people come together to learn and be empowered by information that makes them want to make different decisions about what they are doing with their health. And while that is happening, people are communing with each other. It's not just like, oh, I learned this and I'm going to do something different. There's a vibe that happens in that room where people share, where people are telling stories, where people are just really authentically connecting with one another. And then by the end of the session, an entire meal is created together. And so that's a very important program for us, because without that sort of education, people don't show up to the farm truck. People don't, if you're not being educated on your food choices and you don't have opportunities like this, then otherwise, why would you make different choices? You actually wouldn't know that there are other choices out there, So that's one thing. That's one of our education programs. And another program that we have is Farm Truck Boutique, which every other month, what we do is we have Farm Truck 912 at our Saturday market. And at our Saturday market. And what Farm Truck Boutique does is we scout out or recruit food entrepreneurs, emerging food entrepreneurs in the community who otherwise wouldn't be able to be at the market all the time, or don't have the resources or outreach capacity to be able to reach people to make their business grow. So one of the things that we do with Farm Truck 912 is we allow them to come to the market with their food products and to be able to promote their business. So in the end, what that program is really doing is it's focusing on equity, right? And we bring people specifically to that Saturday market because there is a lot of wealth. To be frank, a lot of wealth that walks through that Saturday market. Literally thousands of people walk through that market. And these growing food entrepreneurs, who are usually Black or Indigenous people of color or lower income people or just people who are starting out, they get a chance to have access to that wealth. And they always do very well out there. So that's our Farm Truck Boutique program. And our last program, I'm going to talk about our SNAP enrollment program, which we are certified through Up Savannah to be able to sign people up to do SNAP enrollment and re-enrollment. Thank you all very much at Up Savannah. But what's great about this program, in particular to the farmers market and farm truck, is that we have a relationship with an organization called Wholesome Wave Georgia. And what they do is they match our dollars for every SNAP dollar that is spent at the farmer's market or the farm truck on fruits or vegetables. So basically, to put that in another way, every single time someone spends one SNAP dollar at the farm truck, it actually equals $2. Another way to look at that is when you use your SNAP card at the farm truck or the market on fresh fruits and vegetables, you get 50% off. And it literally becomes the healthiest, cheapest fruits and vegetables you can possibly get in the state of Georgia through that program. And just a last plug there, Forsyth Farmers Market does do, like I said, SNAP enrollments. If you're interested in having a team member come out to your location or pick you up or do it over the phone or anything of that nature, you can reach out to us and we can set up an appointment for you. Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Armand now.
Thank you, Mark. So some of the recommendations and sort of next steps that we arrived at for the from the work of the Real Task Force. Our first major one is food placement strategies in food retail stores. So what this really is healthy checkout aisles, and it's something that Healthy Savannah has been working on very recently. So we received a grant for the Center of Science in the Public Interest, and the goal of the grant is to basically change up how checkout aisles look, specifically in Savannah. So for example, when you're at the grocery store and you're waiting in line and the person behind you has $200 worth of groceries and they're paying with a check and you're just waiting and you look to your right and all you see is bubble gum, Snicker bars, Skittles, and every other unhealthy possible option out there is right there next to you. It becomes extremely tempting to just grab that and throw it with the rest of your groceries and add that unhealthy food to your diet. What the Healthy Checkout initiative would do is actually put some more healthy options amongst those same things. And so we're not looking to take every unhealthy item out the grocery store, but what we really want to do is provide a choice. Right now, the only choice is something unhealthy. So by changing that up, we can have a healthy option for people if they want it. And we hope they do want it, because the convenience of that is extremely motivating for people, and science backs that up. The other recommendation we have is reducing the price of healthy foods in our existing stores. The only other thing that would motivate somebody to get an unhealthy item more than convenience is the price of it. And so we want to work with our existing stores to reduce the price of the healthy options that they already carry. So it's a win-win for both sides. We also want to increase the availability of healthy food in our existing corner stores. So Healthy Savannah for the last about 4 years now have had the corner store initiative, where we identify a local corner store and basically work with them to increase the availability of healthy food there. With a lot of these communities that we've talked about this whole sort of presentation, they don't have grocery stores in their communities, but they do have corner stores. They do have gas stations and convenience stores. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people have to get their food from, especially if they don't have transportation to get them 2 or 3 miles outside of their home. So we want to work with those stores that do exist in those areas and increase the healthy food there. Also, expansion of SNAP incentives for fresh produce. So this is really what Mark was just talking about with the farm truck, where you can get double the food basically by using your SNAP benefits there. We want to expand that to more places and more grocery stores and corner stores, etc. The final recommendation, which may be the hardest and most long-term one, is basically creating supermarkets that are sustained by the community. So Savannah has had experiences in the past in which big grocery stores have come to these neighborhoods that are dealing with food insecurity. The issue is that they don't last long. And a lot of this is because the community isn't involved with the establishment of it or the actual running it. And that's the issue. What we found is examples across the country in which local communities or local nonprofit organizations take over that running of a grocery store and making all the day-to-day decisions of it. And they're much more successful because of it. And they last longer and they do more for the community because of it. I think there was an example here in Savannah. I want to say it was a Food Lion. I may be wrong on the actual name of it, but they were established on the east side, and I think they lasted about a year before they were gone. And one of the big issues they faced was that they didn't offer SNAP benefits at a grocery store. And so if you have your local community or your local nonprofits running that never gets to that point to begin with, because they have the community in mind. So as far as a long-term solution, it would be great if we can do that. And so we're looking into the next steps of how we can establish something like that here in Savannah in our east and west side neighborhoods. I really appreciate you all allowing me to talk. I'm gonna hand it back over to Kim, and I look forward to any questions you all may have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Armand. So we're going to move forward with how Step Up Savannah is targeting food insecurity in Savannah and our surrounding counties. So we have several direct service programs, but the ones I want to talk about tonight is our public benefits programming. And part of this program includes, we have 9 agencies in Savannah, and then 1 in a surrounding county that assist with public benefits. And that includes SNAP, Medicaid, CAP, SWIC, and TANF. The ones that particularly help with food insecurity are SNAP and WIC. But the other ones, they put money back into the pockets of folks so that then they can better care for their overall health. And so that's a great program that we have, and we work with Healthy Savannah and Forsyth Farmers Market in this program. With Healthy Savannah, we are working with them to target underserved zip codes. So we have very specifically started tracking like where are the most underserved zip codes, where's the most food insecurity, and how can we target that, and looking for agencies within those zip codes that we can then plant there and then help with the SNAP benefit. So there's not that transportation barrier or lack of access, and we improve, we build bridges that so people can access the food and nutrition that they need. The other program that we do is part of our education and advocacy, and that's part of what we're doing actually tonight. But we also work with the public benefits cliff. And just quickly, the public benefits cliff is when folks, it's threefold. One, someone could have a job, they're receiving public benefits, they're within that income limit, they get a $5 raise, and it puts them over the limit for SNAP, Medicaid, they lose their child care, they lose their Section 8. And what happens a lot of times is folks actually are less well off than if they were on benefits. They might have a $5 raise and they have that extra income, but that extra income is making them lose all their other net asset or their assets. The other way that it could happen is that someone's already in that boat, like they're experiencing poverty. They have a net worth of 0 or below, or maybe just slightly above zero, and they're not able to make it, but they're not eligible for the benefits. The third way that happens is through policy. So for example, there's a student requirement outside the waivers that are happening right now due to the pandemic. And that's when there's like for students, they have to work 20 hours a week to be able to get benefits. And we know a lot of times, especially students who are in the traditional or the technological type schools, non-traditional hours, is that they do not, they go to class the majority of their hours, and then they sometimes they're actually in tutoring. I used to work at the college, and I would see this all the time. I would see them going to class, doing unpaid internships, and trying to make ends meet, but not being, they might work I saw this, it was 19 hours a week, and they wouldn't get the benefits because they needed to work 20. Or they're working 15 hours a week or whatever. Now there's other things that could happen that helps them in that situation, such as doing work study, and having children and stuff like that. But I saw it all the time with students. And so that's a policy that I think that's a barrier to folks trying to get the food and nutrition they need. And we know that food and nutrition helps you with your education. And so that's just something that we're working on as an agency to educate folks on as well. The other thing with the public benefits cliff that we have a whole task force, but specifically as far as the direct service program, is we're working with the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, and we've developed this tool called the Career Opportunity Dashboard for Economic Mobility. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute and what that all entails. So as I stated, we have these benefits that are on the screen. We have SNAP, which is the SNAP benefit, the food benefit. You get EBT benefits, as what Forsyth Farmers Market was talking about, where you can double your dollars at the food market. We can help with Medicaid, which is the health care for parents and then children as well. And it's low to no cost health insurance for uninsured families. There's CAPS, which is childcare services. You have to work a certain amount of hours a week or be in school to be able to be eligible for this benefit. And then WIC, which is Women, Infant, Children. This is a food and nutrition, and also they help with breastfeeding and other nutrition initiatives for children up to the age of 5. And then there's TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, and it's a limited income-based program. It was previously known as welfare, and it provides cash assistance to low-income families. As I previously stated, we have 9 different agencies that help with these benefits, and we can help with applications, renewals, case issues. We have direct connection with the local DFACs, and we can help mitigate issues as they arise. So these agencies are Up Savannah. We have a staff member at First Expanded Baptist Church. They do Spanish, they speak Spanish and can help with that language barrier. St. Mary's Community Center, Wesley Community Center, Savannah Technical College. We have 2 City of Savannah locations at Moses Jackson and Pennsylvania Avenue Resource Center, Forsyth Farmers Market, of course, and then Ready to Connect that's located in Savannah. As I stated earlier, we have the code, Career Opportunity Dashboard for Economic Mobility, and we created this back in June of 2021. And it was created as a tool, and basically what it does is it compares career pathways in relation to public benefits gains and losses. And so basically you'll put in your information, you'll put your current career pathway, what your goal career pathway is, and then what income you currently have, what benefits you're currently receiving, and it's going to compare those tracks. It'll show you what the self-sufficiency target is. Will you meet that self-sufficiency target? And then along with that, you can also track a budget. So the budget will show you like, okay, like with this career pathway, I'll be able to meet my budget. And this is how much money I'll need for that in each area. So it's a great tool. And Step Up is actually just starting to develop a program around this where folks can call in and get guidance on this. But if you're interested, we can certainly help you now with this. You just call, you'll see my contact information on the next slide. Okay, so we're coming to an end here. Here's the contact information for all of the speakers tonight. There's Armand, Mark, and myself. And that's our email addresses, and then also our websites that you can check out and get all the information we discussed about tonight. So I'm going to I want to open up the floor for any questions. You can put your questions in the Q&A, or you can put them on, if you're watching on Facebook, you can put them on the comments on Facebook. Austin, have you seen any come up so far?
No questions yet. I actually had a question of my own if we want to give people time to come up with their questions. It's for Armand and Mark. Maybe just what's one item on your wish list for this year? So maybe something that you'd like to see accomplished before the sun sets on 2022. I know the year just started, but is there anything that you're hoping happens, or hoping maybe legislation at any level, or just anything? Let me know.
Well, for me, I think we've been having such great success with that corner store initiative that we're talking about. I think right now we're at 6 different corner stores. So if I had one wish, I would say that we expand to, 3 more corner stores by the end of the year. I think that'd be awesome, and a great continued step forward to coming up with a good solution for our communities until we can get that big locally ran grocery store.
Yeah, Armand, I think that would be dope to have a cooperatively owned grocery store in the community. That's an awesome endeavor right there. So one of the things I'll follow along with Armand, thinking about a program that's already in existence for Forsyth Farmers Market is, so we are actually in the middle of a capital campaign to actually purchase a new farm truck. As much as we love our beloved farm truck that you saw a picture of there, it's a 1999 old Wonder Bread truck that still serves us well, and Juicy, as we affectionately call the truck, will always be there with us. But we do need to have a new farm truck in order to be more agile, to be more efficient with our food, and to be able to actually keep our food preserved even better so that we can reach more communities. So my big wish moving forward is that the farm truck is actually able to consistently reach all zip codes and also those places in the county that we don't think of often, that have very high amounts of poverty and food apartheid taking place in their communities, to be able to reach those communities as well. And then I'll add one other thing that I hope to see happen, again, pulling on the motivation of Armand and the cooperatively owned grocery store. In our strategic plan at Forsyth Farmers Market, the idea came up of having a cooperatively owned kitchen. So what does it look like for people who are food entrepreneurs to actually collectively own a kitchen where they can create their meals and such to be sold in community? I'm hoping that we start to get some of the funding and lay some of the groundwork for that to happen this year.
Thank you. So just was checking on the chat and Facebook. doesn't look like there are any other questions, but I really appreciate you taking the time to answer that question, and hoping that we do see a new truck out in the community.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. That was a great question, Austin. All right, I'm going to now turn it over to Ms. Tanika Rivers to close us out for the night.
Good afternoon, well, good evening, everyone. As you said, I'm Tanika Rivers, the CAP manager, and we would like to let everyone know that you can reach us on all of the social media platforms, YouTube, Step Up Savannah, we're on Step Up Savannah, as well as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, physical address is 428 Bull Street, Suite 208. We would also like to thank all of our partners and sponsors. As always, a big thank you to Chatham County, City of Savannah. We're supported by United Way of the Coastal Empire, Truist Bank, Charles A. Fruoff Foundation, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, State of Georgia, Georgia Department of Human Services, the YMCA, Memorial Hospital, Gulfstream, and CETA. I'm normally leaving one out, Americorps. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us tonight. This will conclude our presentation, and we hope that you have a great rest of your night. Bye.
Everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good job, everyone. Thank y'all for joining. Actually, let's
Setting it up.
hold on a second.
I think you're still.